Then he saw that they were indeed shaped and fashioned. The craft and power of old had wrought upon them, and they still preserve through the suns and rains of forgotten years the mighty likenesses in which they had been hewn. Upon great pedestals founded in the deep waters stood two great kings of stone. Still with blurred eyes and crannied brows, they frowned upon the north. The left hand of each was raised palm outward in gesture of warning. In each right hand, there was an axe. Upon each head there was a crumbling helm and crown. That's it. We're finally actually getting to the statues. Hello, I'm William. This is Basics with Blender episode 4. We're gonna get to doing the Pillars of the Kings, the Argonath. Hello, welcome. Hi guys. So, yeah, this is gonna get tricky, but fun, I hope. So, making human figures is tough. So I have done something that will make things a little bit easier, maybe. If we have a look in the Discord, I have uploaded 2 images. For now, I just need the one. So the statue sketch, if you just save that, we can use that in Blender as like a reference image, so then you don't have to like make up stuff completely, which is useful. And then there's also a face reference there. We'll get to that later. Face is going to be the very tough part. So if you not a regular, just let me go over. This is the Basics with Blender, where we're going to be using Blender, which is a free open source modeling software, and we're creating a scene from the Lord of the Rings, the Argonath. That's the 2 giant statues. So Blender is available for download at blender.org. And just make sure, if you're doing this tutorial sort of stuff, use at least 2.8, otherwise features may look different and work slightly differently. The Discord server is in this link over here, and I'm going to pop it into chat. So that's where you can get those 2 images. So once you have those images and you've opened up Blender, you should get your scene that looks something like this. And what you just need to do is find your folder with the images, wherever they're saved, and just, well then I'll show you both ways. Just grab the one image and drag it into the Blender window. You'll see it looks a little bit funny because it actually places it along the view. So I'm just going to undo that, and I'm going to press the numpad 1. So this way we're going to go into the side view. So if I now do the same thing of dragging that sketch into Blender, now when I rotate, this image is aligned to that plane. Generally, if you were going to be using reference images and stuff, you might want to actually have an image for the side, an image for the front, an image for the top, and then you put them all together. In this, we're kind of just going to go a little bit freeform. So I'm just putting the one, and then we can use that just for sort of body proportions and stuff like that. So it doesn't need to be too crazy. So then I'm just going to switch into move mode, drag him across, maybe just put it up a little bit higher, And then because it looks a little bit weird, that's because this is a PNG with transparency and it's not actually using the transparency. So if you have your thing imported, you just need to go to this object properties, which looks like a little image icon. And from there, you just want to turn on transparency. And then it will not look so weird. And now you can have stuff visible on either side. What I'm going to do though is, for this, I'm going to make it so that we can't accidentally grab it. So let me just switch the camera because you're going to work up at the top here. So where my face usually is, there's a little filter drop down thing over here. Now, by default, Blender just shows you the eye icon over here, which turns off visibility, which is useful, but there's a whole lot of other stuff you can do in the outliner. So if I pop down this little filter icon over here, so it sort of looks like a funnel or something, there are a bunch of little restriction toggles that are called them here, and one of them is called selectable. So if I turn that on, you'll see now we've got a second column of icons over here, and basically if I turn selectable off on this layer, now we can't accidentally grab it and move it around. So now it's purely just a reference image. There are additional settings over here for these dragged in reference images, like you can make it so it's only visible from certain views or stuff, but for what we're doing, I think it's useful to have it visible from all directions. Yeah, hopefully that makes sense and you've all got the reference in there. So as I said, we're going to try and freeform this. We're not going to go for like a super realistic character because that's asking a lot. Even for myself, I'm not a human figure artist of notes. So I left the default cube in here because that's a nice basis to start off with. And basically one of the descriptions of these statues is that they're on these great big plinths in the water. So I'm just going to drag down my cube and use that as sort of a starting point. So then I'm going to pop into edit mode with tab, select face, and select the top. And this won't be a thing where, unless you want to be really pedantic, that you need to copy my exact steps, because we're just going to be extruding and grabbing and doing stuff. So just sort of more follow the concepts and make your character look how you want, because at this point, if you try and do every single thing exactly the same, it's going to be a nightmare. Yeah, I like being pedantic, but we've only got a little bit of time. Oh yeah, I might get load shedding. For those of you who aren't aware, I'm in South Africa, and load shedding is a thing where they turn off the power for a few hours a day, and that might be happening tonight. I don't know. If it does happen, my stream will continue, but all my lights will go off, my computer will stay on. So we'll see what happens. So once we've got this little cube here, I'm going to start off by doing an eye inset on the top face. And I'm going to start making like basic human shape. So you see the way I've drawn this sketch is there's one arm, leg stepping slightly forward and then one a little bit back. So I'm going to have sort of a narrow front to this. So I'm going to scale this along the Y. Something like that. And then since I want to get 2 feet in there, I'm going to use the knife. I'm going to go press K K for knife. And then I'm just going to cut this in half. I'm just going to hold down Control, and that'll snap it to the middle of these edges. But I'm really just going to be blocking things out, so I'm just going to switch on to the side view again. So I'm going to press numpad 1 and press E to extrude. And I'm just going to sort of match this very basically to the leg shape over here. And yes, it's super blocky and thick, but we're just doing some basic block outs and stuff. And I'm thinking now what the best way to do this would be is to bring out the other leg. Instead of going up from the ground, I'm just going to do the same thing and cut this bit in half and sort of just extrude that backwards. We're not aiming for like a animated character or thing with proper topology or something like that, so this is purely a sculpture for fun. And we can go back and refine these things as we go. So every time I'm dragging these out, it's pressing E to extrude, and now I'm just sort of rotating them so it's sort of flush with the ground. And then I'm going to go to the top, extrude it out, scale it up so we sort of get shoulder width. I'm only really worrying about looking from one direction at the moment, so we can always refine things later. And then we're going to extrude once more and scale it down so we sort of get the neck and shoulders over there. And then one more extrude for the basic head area. The head is where we're going to put a lot of effort, I think, in, but so yeah, don't worry if yours is looking different. Mine is still looking pretty darn crap right now. But this is just block outs. So if I now switch to the other side, we sort of get a person-y shaped thing, like a person on the front. So depending on how you want your character to be, you might want your character standing, facing forward like this. I kind of want mine like this, but it's all up to you. So then I'm just going to go into edit mode again, and I'm going to grab edges and just sort of move them around until it's sort of matching somewhat with what a human body would be. We're going to continually refine this as we go along, so don't worry. So I'm just doing Alt, click on the edge to select the whole edge loop, and then I'm scaling that down as one to get the leg, make the knee not enormous, and then I'm going to scale it along the Y so it's not enormous. Same with that. You could have done these as you were extruding them out, but doesn't matter. I'm going to put a little bit of bend in that knee, otherwise it's going to feel really static. I'm going to switch on X-ray because I've got this little edge at the bottom over here, hidden under the ground actually. And since his groin is looking a little bit weird, I'm just going to grab that edge, sort of put it in the center, and scale it along the Y as well. So what's actually going to make things a little bit simpler so that we don't have to make a full human is that I've designed this character with flowing cloaks or robes or something, so that We don't have to model out every single detail. A lot of it might get obscured. So you might even not want to do the legs individually. You can just sort of drape them in clothing depending on how much detail you want to go in. So if you want to split a face, I'm going to actually do that now to make this arm. Basically two different ways. Press K to go into knife tool and select the edge you want to start with, and you can go down and click and down and click, and then if you press enter it will split out that. The other thing you can do is you can just select your face and either search in here for the where is it? Geez, where is subdivide? Okay, well, you'll just have to just go into space and say subdivide, and that'll cut it into 4 pieces by default. That's also available from face. And is it face? See, I usually do these from the search menu, so. Mesh. Look at me searching for things over here. There, it's under edge, subdivide. Oh, that's under edge. Why would it work? Okay. That will subdivide a face. That's weird though, like your knife is being weird. So you click one edge. Do you get the little green dot? Do you see the line while you're doing it? And then you've got to press enter to actually make it happen. Otherwise it's just doing a preview of the thing. So I do hold down control to go into the middle. That's weird. You can also double click if enter doesn't work. Oh wait, actually that didn't work for me either. Let's just try this. Oh, that just closes the segment, not actually applies the thing. Because for me it works every time. I just press enter and it applies the new face. Just let me look at these menus at the bottom here. What does E do? I don't know, Glenn. I don't know why that would be doing that. So the way I've designed this figure is that the arm is sort of slightly pointing downwards, because I found it a little bit weird that when you're coming along the river, the arm's like pointed at something far down the river, whereas you're kind of there. So let's actually point the stop gesture a little bit lower. That was my idea, at least. Have you figured that out yet, Glenn? Zoltanic. So to make that hand, I'm just extruding the edge. So let me go back. Extruding one face and then extruding that edge to pop out the hand like that. So this is really just super blocked out. You can always turn off the thing if it's getting a little bit annoying and you can't see what you're doing. Wait, do you want me to start again? I can do that. Add a new cube. I'm going to drag it down and show back my empty with the image. So you don't even need to do it in as much detail as I did before. I'm just going to start off with an inset, scale it along the Y so we get the... well, I'm going to do this in another way anyway. And then instead of doing individual legs, since this is going to be surrounded by cloaks and stuff, I'm just going to extrude it like this. So this is the simpler looking one. Extrude, get the torso. Extrude, get the neck. Extrude, get the head. Width's all weird, but we don't need to worry about that. You can select the face, so, the front edge of the body, extrude arm. I'm going to scale it along the Z so it's more square. And we're definitely going for more squared off stuff. This is a statue, so we don't need to go super organic, though we will do some smoothing and stuff later. Extruding that again, getting the hand edge like this. If we look at the movie, the way they've done it, there's actually a few things that's different from the book description, but let me just go to the Lord of the Rings quotes. So in the movie, it's not actually who it should be in the book. The book, it is Isildur and his brother Anárion, but in the movie it's Isildur and his father. And you see they actually got one with a sword and one with an axe. So that's the sword that Aragorn carries. But yeah, you'll see that the other guy over here, he's carrying an axe and resting his right hand on the axe, or standing holding that. So just give you a little bit of more reference of how this looks. And then it's got that lovely frowning expression. Helps to have another look at the reference, I think. So, for the way I've drawn it, I've got him holding the axe. If you want to have your axe being held or rested on or held in another angle, that's up to you. You can do whatever you want. I mean, you don't even need to do it this exact pose. So for this, I'm going to use knife, cut out this arm, extrude and shrink. So I'm just rotating from the side view. So if you do a rotation, it will always rotate from the view that you're at. So if you want to rotate along the side view, just go into the side view and you'll get the nice little rotation there. So then I'm going to move this outwards so that we get the arm sticking out in front of the body. So I'm just going to grab these edges, so I'm just shift clicking them, sliding them aside. And I might even do that with this edge loop over here, so I'm going to alt click on that edge loop to select the whole loop and just move that whole sort of shoulder forward. And we can select this top edge just to make the shoulders feel a little bit more natural. And don't worry if yours is not looking human, mine is not looking very human at the moment, is it? But we're starting to sort of get like a basic pose. So I'm just going to do a little bit of stuff, make the neck a little bit more natural. And I also, you might notice that I'm aiming the head as well, slightly down. Just so he's looking down, scowling at the people on the river. So I'm just going to grab and rotate that a little bit. And I'm really aiming for something super blocky right now. And then I'm just going to grab around these vertices and sort of just start make things a little bit more natural. So this is where its lats would be, so that'll go a little bit lower. Get some shape in the chest. Narrow out the waist a little bit. And this is why we start with these really simple blocked out shapes, because it's way easier to just adjust one little vertex than it is to go through and do a detailed model at first. And we're doing this completely from scratch, but if you wanted to in the future, you can just like find human figures and adapt them and stuff. But I think it's a good exercise to actually do it by hand. So he's got a lot of a squared off shape there with the arm. And actually, since this is a sculpture, imagine that like what would actually work. Like a lot of Roman sculptures and stuff, their arms have fallen off because they were not supported. So maybe it's a good idea to make it sort of flush along with the main sculptural point over here. And this is proportionally incorrect, so I'm just going to drag this around, match it up with my drawing's elbow, which should be somewhat proportional. Some nice buff shoulders. If you're wondering why mine went transparent, just remember you've still got the X-ray view, so that's Alt C. But I usually just do it by hand. It's kind of nice because then you can also see the reference image in the background. So I'm just doing the G for grab and selecting and dragging around these vertices. Hands are going to be very fun to do. So I'm just doing AA to deselect everything, grabbing specific things that I want, and AA to deselect, and then go back and grab things. I just find that my workflow, you can do whatever works for you. So I think in the movie version, it's actually that there's 1 foot forward and the other one is sort of stepped out at 90 degrees or something. So it's less facing forward and more sort of half and half. Oh, I forget the name of that thing. In sculptures, you would do I think it's called contopasto or something like that, where the body is slightly inclined. So imagine standing, but your one hip is slightly higher than the other, which just gives a more organic thing to it. But I kind of didn't go for that because this is more like a imposing, blocked off, squared shape. So going for something more organic kind of feels less imposing, if you know what I mean. So you see we sort of got a basic humanish block off going on here. I'd like to see how yours are going if you want to post them in the Discord. And if you want to bring in your axe for posing and stuff, once you've got it to this sort of shape, form, might be a good idea to bring it in. So I'm going to show you how you can append objects from other files into a new one. So I'm just going to save this quickly. Where is my episode 4 folder? Okay. So if you want to bring in your axe, under the file menu, you can say append. You can also do link and stuff like that, which allows you to edit them separately. But appending just adds a copy of that something to the file, so you don't have to worry about things going weird. You can edit it and stuff. So then we just need to go in here and search for our axe. Let me see, which one is the latest one? I think it was this one. So if you double click on that, it'll actually give you like a folder structure of that blend file. And in there you will find like all these different things. You just want to look for object. You might see mesh and stuff like that, but you want the actual object, because the object is the thing that you can move around and do stuff with. The mesh is just the points. So if we do object, and I didn't name it because I didn't tell you to do that, but you'll see that there's cube 001, your might be just cube or something like that. That should be your axe if you did save it and do this. And then you can just select that and say append. And now I have my gigantic axe because I made this 6 meters tall, whereas I haven't scaled my sculpture yet. But that's fine, I can just scale this axe down. And finds a size that sort of works, which is basically exactly what I just made it. That was lucky. So let me just move it around so it's in the hand. This way you can start get some proportional stuff for posing with your axe. If you didn't do the episode where we did the axe, then you can find that on YouTube, or it should still be available on a VOD on Twitch for at least another week, I think. But it's a fairly simple model. So if you wanted to pose yours holding the axe in a different position, you can grab it, rotate it, and do stuff. You know, make him hold it, or do one of those sort of do not cross things where they're holding their axe out to block the river or something like that. I had thought about doing that. And the two sculptures would be crossing their axes like that, which could be interesting. But I'm just going by the book description, which is they were just holding axes in their right arms. And actually the book description kind of has them with their hands by their head, so more sort of holding their arm up near their face. But I think this is more dramatic, not just a... You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know why I stuck my tongue out while I was doing that. So, once you have a basic shape, you can start going in and refining things. So, maybe you want to have a little bit more detail, let's say, around the hips over here. So you want to select like these edge loops, and I'm just going to do a bevel to add additional detail over here. Or you could actually just say Control R and add edge loops, which is basically doing the same sort of thing. And adding these loops is a nice way to just sort of easily subdivide your model, but it does it all the way through. So then, since I maybe want a little bit of a gap between the legs over here, I might want to just sort of extrude inwards to add a gap there between the legs. A little bit of a high crotch there, but we'll get back and fix that. If I select these loops around the neck over here, I can Control B to bevel that, add a little bit more detail and sort of shrink down the neck a bit. Kind of feel like I'm going a little bit tall, so let's just grab everything and slide it down a little bit. So I'm just alt clicking on these edges to drag them around and just lower them a little bit. And this would be a point where it would be interesting to see what it looks like if you turn on a subdivision surface. So if you want to just smooth it out, if we go into modifiers, so the modifier properties, add modifier, subdivision surface. This is that thing that sort of smooths out the whole thing. So if I just turn that up to 2 in the viewport, press numpad 5, that'll go between perspective and no perspective. That's also this little button over here. So if you don't have a numpad, next to these axis indicators, there's a zoom, a grab, camera, and then the toggle perspective on or off. So you see if it's squares, it's on orthographic. If it's little perspective grid, it's on perspective. So since my plinth is now all smoothed out, I'm just going to grab these edges around the plinth, and I'm just going to Control B to bevel them just a little bit so we get a little sharper base over there. I actually kind of like how it looks with this subdivision blending into the base. It sort of looks like this cloak is draped on the floor. Happy accident. I'm happy with that. I'm going to leave that. Depending on how you want your scene to look, the cliff will be sort of pressing up against the one side of the sculpture. So each one, we're going to duplicate this later on and have the two. So the one is going to have cliff along its back, and the other is going to have cliff along its inside. So you might at some point want to start thinking about that, but I'm just going to work on the one for now. Just making the base shapes, and then we can always go do that stuff later. Because it is specified that it is both with their left hands out. So I'm just going to rotate my axe a little bit. I think I'm going to pull it out slightly. And this would be something that would be used in actual sculpture, where they would have an object like this, and then the arm would be supported if you dragged it out. So you would find, like in ancient Roman or Greek sculptures or something, you'll find like random trees and stuff that they're sort of leaning against and stuff, specifically for this reason, so that they can have structural supports. And considering this is a like 100 or 50 or whatever meters tall sculpture, it would be a little bit worse for wear than even a 2-meter sculpture. So let's have a look. Yeah. Oh, that's Glenn's. Yeah, it's got that nice lean in, which kind of feels powerful. I like it. I'm gonna see yours, Luke. So wait, I didn't show this. There's Glenn's. Oh, here's Luke's. Hey! Oh, so that's because you've got your... It's like he's got a giant club foot. But that's fine, we can detach that if you want. I can show you how to do that. Then you don't get that subdivision joining thing. But I mean, it doesn't look too different from mine. So, I'm just going to duplicate and hide. So say you wanted to detach your thing from the base so it doesn't have this... How did I make it not mess up the pedestal? I just added these loops so it blends up. So you can just have it as a separate object. I just did it this way so that we started off from a cube. They could just be separate objects. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to show you if I go into X-ray. So if we want to just separate these legs from the base, probably the simplest way to just do it as one thing is to grab the bits that are part of the base. Just check that in face mode that you've got all the faces selected. So I'm just pressing B to do the border grab thing. You can also use C to select. And make sure you don't have random stragglers. And then just say, either in search, so with space, or with F3, depending on which thing you've got, search for separate. And you'll see that the keyboard shortcut for that is actually P. I just usually do that with this because it's easier. Separate by selection. So that will turn this base into its own object. So now I can grab that. It will still keep the subdivision surface and whatever modifiers were on the main one, but now they're two separate objects. So Luke, you might find that helps with yours, and then you can work on it without all this chaos going on. Though I must say I kind of liked how mine was looking with it joined up. There's my version. There we go. I just like that sort of flowing joining for mine. Okay, so just keep refining your shapes and stuff until you've got something that starts to feel like you can add more detail to it. So I'm almost getting to that point over here. Don't forget to check it from different angles, because you might find that maybe it looks a little bit skinny or something like that. And you can always turn off your referencing if it's getting in the way, so you can check from all angles. You can see why I left this a few episodes in, because we needed some just like basic modeling skills to sort of start doing this. If you find you have an edge that looks a little bit overly rounded when you've got the subdivision on, just bevel it. Use the mouse wheel to add or remove segments, and that can sort of change how this will work. So you can just sort of grab these edges and split them up to just sort of give you a more natural bend or something. This is not necessarily the correct way to do things, it's just easy. We can worry about doing things properly in later tutorials. Attach a face to another. Well, so what you could do is, if you've got two faces, so let's see, let's say that you wanted to, I'm just gonna make a example hand thing over here. Maybe we wanted to join the two hands together into one mutant. Yeah, that is one thing you can do. I'll explain that as well. So what you could do is you can select your faces, and there are two different things. You can either press go into search, and I think it's for bridge edge loops, which will then create faces between two areas. Or like Glenn said, auto merge, which basically will merge into things together if they're close enough. So if I select this hand over here, I just selected L to select all the connected ones. And right at the top here, next to the mirror stuff, there's a little thing called auto merge vertices, or vertices, depending on how you want to say it. So basically what this will do is, if I bring this closer, it's not actually doing anything because the distance is too low. So it's saying at 0.001 meters it will join. But you can make that bigger and then grab this, and as you move things, they'll join into one horrific abomination of a joined thing. But it's not as controllable. So you would have to sort of do something like grabbing a specific vertex and shrinking two vertices together or something like that, which would then sort of do the same sort of thing. Hopefully that makes sense. Bridging is a nice way to do it. Or if you have two holes, you can delete faces and then select the edge loops. I think, let's see, not actually done it this way, but it should work. If you've got two holes like this, if you press F, no, it just fills the hole. So you would have to do the bridge edge loops things to bridge the two holes. But that does create the best join you'll have between two different areas. So let me just get rid of this. There's always multiple different ways to do things in this. So I'm going to start adding some more detail to the hand. So actually I'm just going to add some edge loops over here. Trying to think. If there's body parts that you're trying to do and you don't have enough reference, you've always got yourself. So I'm looking at my hand. Even if I look at it every day, sometimes it just helps to double check. Because what you think in your head is not necessarily how things actually look. Actually, I think for a sculpture, maybe it would make more sense to have it connected fingers like this. And if you find you get places where you've got more geometry than you want, like this, I only really wanted to extrude it halfway. So I'm going to select vertices and I'm going to press M to merge. And you can either do it at the first one you selected, the last one you selected, the center, the cursor, or collapse it. I like to do it by specifying I want to start with this one and merge at that one. So I'm going to say merge at last. M, merge at last. So that way you get sort of a little bit more controllable blending of things over here. And don't worry, we're not going to be doing face operations the whole time. We're going to do some fun stuff with sculpting and stuff just now, because that's where you'll get fun details and things. Okay, so I think since I've got my character I want to have with robes, I'm going to start dragging out some bits over here for the robe. This will also act as sort of like an arch for the sculpture to support itself, because the arch is a good shape. What have you done, Glenn? What have you done? What is it doing? Do you maybe have an operation selected? If you right click and try again, you might be trying to do something. And don't forget that we do have a giveaway going on the channel for Prison Architect. If you want to win Prison Architect, if you give me a follow, if you're enjoying, you can follow, you'll get 100 points. And if you type in !enter ticket into chat, you get entered into the draw to win Prison Architect. And I'll do the draw when we get to 50 followers. We're slowly getting there. I do appreciate the follows. Is your thing still not dragging there, Glenn? You may have turned something on and I can't think of what. So I'm going to add another edge loop over here where I was working with this draped stuff, and this way we can then sort of make the arm more army, and then it also adds some detail onto the fingers so we can stretch up the middle of the hand as well. gonna add another loop over here with Control R. I'm gonna use this to sort of make the cloak sort of start a little bit further down the arm. A little red and grey circle that goes wherever you click. Does it look like that? No, that's not red. Oh, that is the 3D cursor. So you must have done something to make the 3D cursor follow the cursor. So usually that only moves if you double click. No, it doesn't even do that anymore. Usually that just stays in one spot. Let's see, cursor. I'm just trying to see, there is something, but I don't usually mess with the 3D cursor unless I'm trying to do specific operations. I've never had that specific problem. Have you tried right-clicking or pressing escape? The only other thing I can think of is to just go into the little settings over here and just turn off the 3D cursor for now. I'm not sure if that will fix it or not. So if you go with this little drop down next to this little two circles overlay icon thing and just turn off 3D cursor, maybe that will work. Though I don't know why your thing is doing that. I've never had a problem with the 3D cursor. So yeah, we're just gonna go in, refine more details. So I'm gonna make this more like it's a hand that's grabbing things. So if it's coming from the right, think of a right hand, you're gonna have it twisting around like this. So we're gonna grab the hand, extrude sections, extrude the fingers around here. Yes, it looks terrible right now, but it will start to look like a hand as we refine things. And don't forget, you can switch between the vertex select, edge select, and face select, and turn on and off X-ray as well. So you can select things that you can't currently see. So this way I can just get things to sort of match what I'm trying to do. So I'm trying to match that hand gripping around this axe, so I'll go to the top view with numpad 7 and sort of start just wrapping it around. So that hand is way too big. So let's be a little bit more natural. So the thumb will be coming from the top, and we can make that just sort of go up along there for now. So if you're starting to get a bunch of different objects, so you've got your axe and stuff, there's actually go into naming them, because it's way easier to turn things on and off if you know what they are. So I'm just going to go into this little orange square over here called Object Properties. Click there and type axe on this. Sculpt 1 on that one. On the empty I can say ref. You can also just double click in the outliner to see things. So this way it's a lot easier to see what's going on. So I want to do some more stuff with the cloth around the legs and maybe see a little bit more of his legs in the middle there, and maybe add some feet poking out from underneath. So I'm going to select this, I'm going to knife out a little area over here and extrude toes, maybe, see how it goes. Looks a little bit weird. In fact, we can leave that for later when we're doing sculpting. So if there are details that just look weird and you're finding it tough to add on, we'll do that in sculpting. Because we really just need the base blocked out shape for now. And we're not even going to worry about topology and things. So let's see. I think I'm going to extrude this edge. I'm going to bevel it maybe. So I'm going to bevel this edge. It's going to look a little bit weird in some bits. And then I'm going to extrude it. And oh wait, I had other things selected. Always check that you don't have stupid things selected when you do these. So if you don't want a big long draping cloak thingy, you don't have to make it. I just think it looks cute. Is your thing still messed up there, Glenn? Or did you fix it? So I'm just making this drapery a little bit. The tool got stuck on. That's what I thought. Wait. That's weird. But also embarrassing! Because you like using that on me, I'll use it on you. What a mean person. So I'm just merging some of these because we don't need to have all these vertices. Vertices. I don't know. Whatever.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. So I'm getting a little bit of a weird thing over here where it's sort of trying to bend the thing in funny directions. I don't know if you're seeing it the way I'm seeing it. So what I'm going to do, this is where a knife will be useful. I'm just going to grab that corner, press K on that corner, and drag it out to where I think it should be connected. And then we can sort of, it just feels a little bit more natural the way it bends. So sort of creating your own edge loop. Let's turn off ref. So I think I maybe want this to flow over that leg a little bit, but I think that's stuff we can do. I'm sorry, there's just so much that I intend to cover in like 2 hours that if I go too slowly then we won't really get anywhere, you know what I mean? But that's why I am uploading them to the YouTubes and stuff. Hey, the power didn't go off. 9 o'clock and the power didn't go off. Great. But what you can do is just keep yours simpler then. If you, like, there's plenty of time we can go back and do stuff, or maybe you imagine yours then as slightly more weather worn and stuff. That's another thing I was wondering, like, should, for those YouTube videos and for people who are watching this on YouTube, should I make it, like, once I'm finished, like an abbreviated version where I just edit down all the steps and tips and stuff? It'll be a lot of work because this is like almost 3 hours an episode to go through, but would you like that instead of the 2 hours of yakking? I do. It'll be a lot of work, especially with my shitty computer. Editing is tiring. Yeah, like the thumbs up is like, that's kind of how you would hold a thing, or maybe you would wrap it around, but I think it looks it looks cool. Maybe I should make it a little bit less uppy and more around the edge. Where's my axe? Did you put it in Discord? No. Okay, so the back arm is really kind of up to how you want to have your character laid out. So I'm making mine with this sort of bent arm, which is actually not the easiest pose to get right. Even just drawing it for the sketch I found was kind of yeah, this is complicated stuff. So how I made mine was I just extruded out one little face and then extrude, bend, extrude, bend, extrude, bend. But if you're finding this bend is being a little bit difficult or impractical, maybe consider other arm positions. So maybe instead of a bent arm, you might want him holding out his weapon like that, or do one where he's holding the axe over his shoulder or something. Whichever feels easier to go for. Let me just add a cube. So that imagine this is the shoulder. So what I did, I think, I can't remember now, is I knifed out where I wanted the arm, selected that face. This is not the proper way to do things, but extruded that out just a little bit so I could start rotating it out. This is where it'd be good to go into the side view. And maybe this bend where I tried to get it flush along the body is kind of difficult, so maybe just go for the one where it comes out like that, because that just naturally goes with the flow of the mesh. And then you can have the axe coming out like that. if you know what I mean. That might be easier to do than try manipulating it around multiple bends to flush with the body. Because I think you did actually have a shorter looking axe anyway, so maybe this would work for your model, if I'm remembering it correctly. So yours would sort of end up looking like that. Or maybe you want to have one where I don't know. Holds it over his shoulder or something. You can, I haven't showed you this before, you can edit multiple objects at once if you just select them and go into edit mode. That's how I'm doing this. So don't worry if you get like funny bends like this, you can always go back in and just sort of find which things are making it look weird. Drag them out a little bit. And just sort of start moving bits one at a time until they start looking natural. Just try to think of like the underlying structure of how the human body works, and it'll sort of make sense. Like this elbow is not how an elbow would look. We want to have that actually come in more like this, and then maybe actually shrink in that elbow with a bevel. So if we turn on a subdivision, it'll reveal all the flaws in the topology, but it will sort of show you what it's going to look like. So that's another sort of a way to have your character's arm go. I actually quite like that. So I'm going to just do a little bit more stuff here with the fabric. Just gonna knife down here, because then I want to sort of make this turn into one fold. So then if I extrude this, I think we'll sort of get something that makes it more like fabric flowing over his knee. And I'm not worrying too much about things being perfect at this point still, so don't worry. Hopefully at least you've got something that's vaguely humanoid. If you've only got a lower body or only got legs or something, it's alright. Maybe your sculpture fell apart a little bit. Because it is now, we've got about another hour, so I kind of want to go into sculpt mode. So just adding a little bit more definition under the arm here. It's not perfect, but yeah, just gonna save this. So I haven't done anything with smoothing or anything like that, because what we're going to work with is a thing in the sculpting, which basically will reset that anyway. So just fixing up some of these little things here first. Merge. What happened over here? I did something weird. Merge. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is start showing you how to use sculpt mode. And sculpt mode is a lovely way in Blender to basically paint on details. So in its simplest form, you just use it to push and pull by painting, but you can do way more complicated things like actually use it to add new details and stuff like that. And if you watch some of my older streams, there's the bits where I was exploring with the cloth sculpt brush and stuff like that, which is super awesome. Okay, so to get into sculpt mode, just have your objects selected that you want to sculpt, and then where you see the object mode, we've changed to edit mode. Below that there is sculpt mode. So that will pop you into sculpt mode, and you'll see that you get a whole lot of new tools on the left hand side. So those are all your different sculpt brushes basically. So if I just select the simple default draw, you'll see that it's got this sort of repeated blue dots. That's because we've got symmetry mode by default on. So I'm just going to turn that off. If you want to paint symmetry, you can turn X, Y, or Z symmetries on with that, but I don't want that for this case. So you see what this will do is if I start clicking and painting and stuff, you'll see that this sort of pulls out areas of the mesh. It's kind of not very strong setting right now, so you might not see it very well. I can put up the strength and then you might see it. So it sort of just pulls up the bits where I'm drawing, which is cool. Doesn't do a lot because we don't have a very detailed mesh at the moment. So basically every one of these faces is just a vertex, so there's not a lot of detail for this to do. But what it is nice for is things like this. If you want to smooth out something, if you hold in shift and draw over something, it will smooth out that area, which is quite useful. And then we can start adding, you know, pulling out the face, making that a little bit rounder, round out the back of the head, stuff like that. This you might want to turn on when we start getting the details. Turn on Y for Y symmetry, or depending on how you've set up your mesh. It should still work for this, even though we don't have a symmetrical mesh. But let's not worry about symmetry for now. So it's not doing a lot because we don't have a very highly detailed mesh. But what there is under the tool settings, so you'll see when you have a tool selected in Blender, no matter what tool, there's a little tool icon here in the panel. So it's called Active Tool and Workspace Settings. So that actually gives you details for every tool that you're working with. So this, for the sculpt, has got, you know, your strength of your brush, the radius, so how wide this blue paintable area is. So if I make that bigger, make it smaller, 50 is a good thing. If you've got a graphics tablet, you can use pressure, so size for pressure, stuff like that. So there's a whole lot of different settings here. But what we're going to look at is a little thing here, just a little bit further down, called dynamic topology is what it is. So what this will do, if I turn that on, it's going to give you a little warning over here. Vertex data detected. DynTopo will not preserve vertex colors, UVs, or other custom data. That's why I haven't done anything with like smoothing and stuff, because when you turn this on, it deletes all that. And then it says here, generative modifiers detected, keeping the modifiers will increase poly counts. So what that means is that because we've got the subdivision and it's not actually going to work with that data. So maybe, depending on how you like the look of things, you might want to apply your subdivision, because then you'll be working with that mesh. So you just go into your modifier stack. Okay, it's not letting me do that. Okay, it won't let me undo, but if you've got your subdivision, just go into the modifier properties and select apply subdivision. So then when you're in sculpt mode with dynamic topology on, so we're going to click that, and then this time we're going to say OK. So that will actually turn on the thing, otherwise it was turned off. So what this will do is, there are a bunch of different settings over here. I'm going to turn on smooth shading, and then now when I go in here and start drawing, it's going to start actually adding in new topologies. So yes, I'm not actually trying to do anything right now, I'm just trying to show you how it looks. You see it will actually start adding new details and stuff, so not just working with the old data. So this way you can really sort of add infinite detail to your mesh. So whereas before, if I was doing that with it turned off, it would just pull out this section. If I turn on dynamic topology, it starts actually adding in new detail. So this is great for when you've got a base mesh like this. Why not Zoidberg? King of Gondor, Lord of the Fishes. You distracted me there, I don't even know what I was saying. It's great for adding in little details and stuff, so once you've got a little base mesh like this. So I'm just going to hide all the things that I don't need and just start working on this. I'm going to go into, let's see. So if you're finding that your character is a little bit hard to see the reference image, what you can do is go into the, I think it's the, so the little orange square thing here with object properties, where it says viewport display. You can change how your model will be displayed. So by default it is displayed as textured, but you can make it show the wireframe by default, or you can change it to be something else. What I'm just going to do is I'm going to turn down, the alpha does not do anything. Never mind. That's weird. I thought it would. Ignore me. I thought you could make them transparent. I've done it before. Embarrassing! It is, isn't it? Okay, so what I can do instead is I can select my reference image and I can change its display to be, let's just go to object mode, select my reference image, under the same thing, I'm going to say in front. So this way it will always draw the reference image in front of things, but then for this I can turn down the opacity. See, I'm not completely insane. So this way I can just have more reference to my actual image all the time without having to be in X-ray mode or something. So then I can go into sculpt mode and just start doing stuff. And you don't have to have dynamic topology on all the time. You can just mess around with it on, with it off, just doing whatever you want. So this is where things can get fun. You can go around, so add muscles and things like that to your character. And if you want to do the opposite, instead of pulling out, you can press Control, and then that'll pull in that surface. So, and then Shift does smoothing. So you can Control to dig in, so where the crook of the elbow will be, Control dig that in, Shift to just smooth around it, maybe make the biceps a little bit bigger, smooth those around a little bit, maybe Control to go in for the armpit. If your reference image is getting in the way, you can just hide that as well. So yeah, now this is where you can just start expressing artistic fun. And I'm not using my graphics tablet for this, so that for those of you who don't have one, you can see that you don't really need it for this sort of thing, though it can work. So he's wearing a sort of a roby cloaky thing, so I'm just making it look a little clothy by pulling out little bits. And now it's just literally sculpting out your character as you want. Let's put his, let's see, where would his foot be? Somewhere over here. So put his foot underneath his cloak over here. Start draping the fabric around his foot. I mean, you can add infinite amounts of details, so you can be here forever. So I'm going to pull out his other foot over here. Pull out his knee in this point. Smooth things a little bit. So these sculptures are of Isildur and Anárion, who were brothers. So Isildur, if you know the story from Lord of the Rings, he was the guy who cut off Sauron's finger and stole the ring. And he is Aragorn's great whatever grandfather. And this was the sculpture that was put up of him in like the year, I think it was like 1200 or something, of the Third Age. And the Third Age began when Sauron was killed, so that was 1,000 years before these statues were made. So Isildur was long dead, because he died 1 year later. And Anárion was his brother, and it's Gondor and Arnor. So Gondor is the bits that you know from the story, but Arnor was actually the main kingdom, and it was up in the north. I'm just giving you lore for fun. And that's where Isildur was going when he was killed and ambushed by orcs and lost his ring in the river, the same river that we're in now with the story. And they were, so Isildur and Anárion were both kings of Gondor and Arnor. So Isildur was actually the one who was ruling in, well, was going to take his father's place in Arnor while his brother stayed in Gondor. But then they both died and things happened and Arnor disappeared, crushed over time. So all we have left is Gondor, and that's where Aragorn goes and takes his crown. Fun facts about Lord of the Rings. So I'm just trying to add in like bits of anatomy here. So like we've got the, what's it called, the shoulder blade, scapula over here. So I'm just pulling that out a little bit for this arm, because when you pull your arm back, you pull out your shoulder blade a little bit. So we're going to do that, giving him some muscles and stuff. Jeez, he's got big muscles. Nice. Man, the Lord of the Rings has got some great history to it. So, Isildur and Anárion, their father's name was Elendil, who was like one of the last loyal humans to escape from Númenor, which was an island that was given to humans, man, they call it at least, in the middle of the ocean, near to where the land where the sort of gods lived. But then they started getting corrupted by Sauron and stuff, so they decided, no, we're just going to sink that island because you guys suck. But Elendil and his sons were still loyal to the gods, so they let them free and they came back to Middle-earth and started their kingdoms. But then, of course, Isildur got the ring and claimed it. It's my precious. My precious. This ring, it is precious to me. Sorry, I don't really have much to say about what I'm doing currently. I'm just going around sculpting stuff, so I'm just giving you random lore. So in the Lord of the Rings, when we actually see these sculptures, it is the year 3019 of the Third Age. So this was another 1,500 years after they were built. So they're pretty ancient statues. And then the next year is year 1 of the Fourth Age, when Aragorn takes his crown. Let's get some definition of the chest here. So pull in the middle, pull out there, shrink in this section, get the shoulder blades and things, pull out the neck, I mean, you can definitely model a lot of these things by hand, but it's kind of fun to do this by sculpting it. Now I'm going to start going into the head over here. So this is where you might want to bring in the other image from the Discord. So where we've got the face, if you want to start working on the face, we've got the face reference over here. And this I've got from the front and the side, and then two little three-quarter views and sort of outlines of the helm and crown and stuff as well, if you want to use it. I'll get there just now. But let's start by defining some chin, some face, centerline nose, sink back the eyes a little bit. Might want to turn on mirroring with along the Y over here. Yeah, starting to get some basic humanish features on the face over here. Get a nice strong eyebrow. Looks a little bit derpy still, but I'm just having fun getting some basic shapes in there. Let's put on the X so we can get some reference. Get some more proper definition around here. The wrist and the thumb. Is there anything you're having particular troubles with your things that you want me to look at again? Because I'm just going to keep on going over stuff like this until we get somewhere. So let me know if you've got things that you've got trouble with. When in doubt, just draw bones and that will give you ideas of where things should be. Get some knuckle. Proportions are not great on this. Get some elbow bone over here. Get some triceps in the back. Some nice strong lats. So let's get this. So this cloth is coming over from the top of his body. So we want it to sort of come over from this side. Ooh, I've still got Y mirroring on. That's not great. I might have been messing up some stuff on my model. That's okay. We don't have that much detail yet. I don't know, quite enjoying this, even though it's not looking great yet. It's very rough, but we can get in there and start doing stuff soon. Let's make him look a little bit more like my drawing. Let's pump up some muscles around his neck over here. So that's a muscle that sort of comes around the back. Pop up the shoulders a little bit. And you can make your guy as buff or as weak as you want him to be. Though, I mean, he's a king of Numenor, so... Well, not Numenor. Gondor. Those guys weren't weak. You might notice that I'm a little bit of a fanboy. This guy needs a butt.
Figure it out.
Figure it out. You guys good? Yours working? Under the... So where you've got object edit mode, there's sculpt mode. And I've just been using the basic tool, but there are also some really cool ones that might be useful for things like what you've got. There's a thing called the pose tool, which can be used to, if you have the right settings, let's see. I think in some of the newer versions it's already more fleshed out than this, but you can use it to sculpt and pose your model. I think it's not liking this one because it doesn't have very good topology. But there's also like grabbing and pulling and shifting stuff you can do. Or the thing that's my favorite, which was the new cloth brush, which basically is as it sounds, does clothy stuff. Yeah, I'd say you apply your subdivision. Sorry, I only saw your message now. Unless you've got a super crazy subdivision. Oops. So mine's looking a little bit wonky, but it's fine. So let's see. Yeah, I have a belt on mine, and I have a little bit of other stuff with the fabric in the background. Let me just... So I actually have a little bit of fabric draped over his arm. It sort of actually more splits down the back of his legs there. but the drawing is just a basic reference, so it doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, I'm going to hide that. And what's nice, there's also a thing called the crease tool. So if you want to make something a little bit sharper, the crease tool will just sort of crease that area, if that makes sense. So it sort of like zips them together, makes a nice little sharp crease, which is nice. Don't forget, Shift will do the smoothing thing, and Control will do the opposite of what your current selected tool. Or, yeah, so push out, push in if you're doing pull out or stuff like that. So I'm making some sort of mounting thing for this cloak. I'm just kind of winging it, just having fun. Hopefully you are too. There's also a thing called the clay tool, which is nice for just like painting on things. So which was the clay strip. So that will basically, you can just use that to sort of draw on bits. So sort of like adding on bits of clay. I quite find this relaxing and enjoyable just to mess around with this. Add some more definition to the two legs in the middle. Then we start getting a knee over here. Second foot. So this is with the clay strip thing. It's more like actually doing like reverse normal sculpting, so it's like sticking on clay instead of pulling off clay and stuff like that. It's fun. I actually want to do some more actual sculpting at some point. So that looks a little bit wonky. His knee is too low. So I'm going to go into the grab and just pull up his knee a little bit. Bring that knee a little bit more forward. You guys got any questions? You want me to go back to any of the original steps that I did? just going to keep on adding little details all over the spot. And what's nice if you want to make sort of like a worn edge. So I'm not at a point where I want to refine details like that, but I'm just going to add a, so let's add a mesh, a cube. So I'm just going to go into sculpt mode with this. And if I turn on dynamic topology, and let's sort of like make some sharp edges and stuff. So we've got some nice little sharp edges or whatever. And then you can just sort of like smooth out edges and sort of crease around them. And then you can get some really nice sort of worn and torn up edges. So actually you wouldn't do it the way I did it. Let me, oops. What the hell? Did I just close Blender accidentally? I did. I'm an idiot. I accidentally pressed stuff with my fat gloved fingers. So this is where it's useful to tell you that in Blender it was showing me the wrong thing. Give me the...
It's fucking embarrassing!
Don't show me that. Show me the actual Blender thing. It's because it closed and Blender starts with a console window. Sorry about this. This is annoying. So, since I accidentally closed and I didn't save, if I open up my old save, it won't be there. But what you can do is, under File, you can say Recover. There's a last session, and that will open the last thing that was opened before Blender quit. So that should be what I was just working on. It is not. It was another artwork I was working on. That is lame. Let's go find an autosave, statue autosave from 3 minutes ago. There you go. Sorry guys, I fat fingered that one like an idiot. So let me just show you another thing that you can do is if you've got a mesh, so I'm going to do a cube again. This doesn't have much detail to it. So it's just got the 8 vertices that make up the cube, but you want to make this same mesh but with more detail. What you can do then is, if we just go into sculpt mode, there's a little thing here called remesh, and basically what this will do, it will remesh this thing to be either a less detailed or a more detailed thing of the current thing based on the settings you have here. So you can have adaptive ones, you can have voxel remeshing. So what we can say is, let's make this cube remesh to 0.06 meters. I don't know how detailed that will be. And remesh, basically what it will do is, it's basically created voxels of the volume of this and turned it into a shape. So the corners have got a little bit weird, but otherwise it's actually a lot more detailed. So then you can go into sculpt mode and then you can do stuff like smooth out an edge and then crease it up and stuff like that. So it's a nice way to just detail a piece and then do stuff to it. So what I was saying is that you can add some nice details to your meshes if you like worn edges and stuff. So if you just smooth out some of your edges and then crisp up others with the crease brush and things like that. You can get that nice sort of worn, ancient look to things. And you can also do things, like add in cracks and crevices and things. So the crease thing is a nice way to just add these sort of sharper, defined lines to things, like a cracked up edge or something. So you see, if I go into edit mode now, this is a lot different of a mesh compared to the one that I made with my just plain face and vertex editing, because it's done this dynamic topology. And it's not great topology, but it's just adding in more detail in places. So what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to start at the face and I'm going to work down. So I'm just going to drag in my face. I can't be in edit mode. So my face reference image, I'm going to do the same thing of turning on transparency. I'm going to scale this down. I'm going to make one for the side, and I'm actually just going to Shift D to duplicate that and put it rotate it 90 degrees, rotate it sideways. So I made this sketch based off of like a mix of Aragorn and Boromir from the movies, so it's just a very manly man. Because Boromir was described as looking like one of the kings of old. And I'm going to turn these to be in front so I can see them the whole time. So now I've got one reference for the side over here. So I'm going to have the face sort of over there. Front over here, let's have a look. So we just need to have this a little bit more to the side, like so. And now I can go in and start editing and have a look. And then I've also got my other views for when I'm moving around that I can just use for reference of what it looks like. Yours does not have to look the same, don't worry. You don't have to use this face, but it's way easier to do some of these things if you actually have face reference. So I'm going to turn on Y mirroring, and I'm going to start putting out some of these things. Got a bit of a double chin. Oh, not double chin, split chin. What do you call that thing? Double chin is something completely different. Chin butt. Cleft chin. I don't know. I'm sure there's a word for that. I'm sorry if I'm insulting you that have one of these. It's generally described as something fairly attractive, isn't it? I don't know. I'm going to turn off these for now. That looks absolutely horrendous. Terrifying. It's okay. We can push back. So you might find actually this is looking a little bit weird and it's being a bit crazy. So what we can actually do is, I am going to make my life a hell of a lot easier. I'm going to go just select my head. And just a little bit around it. And I'm just going to get rid of it. What? And then I'm going to add in, well, actually I just hid it. I didn't actually completely get rid of it. I'm going to add in a isosphere. So add mesh isosphere. I mean, not iso, UV sphere is the better one for this use, because that gives you a sphere with a mesh similar to this, and it'll just be a hell of a lot easier to make a face and head from this. So while we got the basic proportions and stuff in our sculpting and our mesh creation, we actually make the head separately. So I'm going to scale this down, and we use this as sort of the brain case bit of the head, and then we can just grab the bottom half, scale it, shrink it down, and now we sort of get a bottom of the half of the head. So because this will be a lot easier to work with. So there's my face. Let's shrink this down to match his head. Go into the side view, grab, rotate, match, Control R to add some edge loops to make those even. So now we've got evenly divided sort of face detail over there. I'm actually just going to delete. That's not. Just going to reveal hidden bits, and I'm actually properly going to delete them this time because they actually are getting in the way. So then we can work with this a lot better than with what we had before. So basically do the exact same stuff, go into sculpt mode, turn into Dino Topo, make sure you have your symmetry in the right direction, and then since this is already sort of placed in the right place, let's actually just get it perfect. Whatever. I think I just drew it a little bit skewed, but that's fine. Now we can sculpt and just be a lot more natural with what we're doing. So my drawing's a little bit skewed, but that's fine. We don't need to make it exactly like the drawing. It's just a reference. Don't need to go crazy. And if you've got too many of these things and they start getting confusing, you can just hide them as you go along. So you're just using the reference that you're currently looking at. might actually be nicer to use the clay strips for this. Building out some areas, pulling out the nose and stuff actually might work nicer. And don't forget, you can also change the strength and radius of these things if they're doing things a little bit too strong. Usually when sculptures were made, they didn't actually do a lot of detail on the eyes. What they would do is they would pull out a round region for the eye itself and then cut a hole in the center where the iris would be, and that would sort of make the light just behave enough that it looked like an eye, but without having to go into all the details that you would need for having an actual fully realistic eye. You can use the grab brush to start pulling things around to make them look a little bit more natural. And this is definitely not the best way to make a character head bust thing, but like if you really wanted to be technical and stuff, you would do this manually and do proper topology and stuff, but really, we're just having fun. That looks terrible. Oh Lord. Oh no. It's fine. Let's get the radius down. Start pulling out bits over here. Do I still have? Yeah, I do. What a strange looking face. So we just got to chisel out the shape a little bit because it was way too rounded over there. Let's chisel out his jawline, guys. Just trying to think of what bone structure and stuff will be behind these different regions, and like muscle structure and things like that. And you can go for something pretty stylized if you want. Like that might actually make for a pretty cool sculpture. It's like more, maybe like Egyptian stylized, because I think there was a thing that the Númenóreans in Lord of the Rings were kind of Egyptian influenced. Like some of their names were like Al Farazon and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe Tolkien actually was thinking of them being more Egyptian than Western. It's up to you. Don't have to go with the movies if you don't want. Okay, this guy looks really alien and terrible. You can see I'm not good at characters, but it's still fun. Let's do this. So I'm going out of my own comfort zone as well doing this. So let's chisel out this, give him a square jaw sort of thing. Do the grabby grab thing. Pull the eyes a little bit closer, pull out the nose. Spread out the lips a little bit. Pull in the cheekbones a little bit. Narrow the head shape. Just do it from all the sides, smooth out the forehead. And then we'll make a nice little helmet as well, which will smooth out a lot of the horrible looking bits. Hey, thanks for the follow there, Old Zool. Cool name. There's a giveaway going on if you want to enter. If you type in !enter for Prison Architect if you would like that. So we're just doing some basic face sculpting, and I'm actually pretty terrible at it. And we're working on the what's it called? The Argonath from the Lord of the Rings. So that's those gigantic sculptures of the kings that they go through in the rivers. Maybe I should make it a little bit more stylized with the beard. That nose is looking terrible. Let's just hide the sculpt for now. Maybe a beard will make it look a little bit more natural. I've never actually done a full person sculpt, so this is new for me too. Just using the grab brush to redistribute these shapes a little bit. And they were described as being frowning over the river, so let's make them look a little bit angrier. Pull down the brows. Pull out the tip of the nose a little bit. I think I turned it down strength-wise a little bit too much. Faces are very hard. Like, don't feel bad if your thing doesn't look amazing, because faces are bloody hard. There's a reason why I avoid them most of the time. Oops. So I'm just adding on some beardy stuff over here. That nose is horribly malformed. I'm sorry. It's not a very regal king, is he, if he's got a nose like that? Some nice blocky eyebrows over here. And it's starting to look like a face. Well, a more natural face, I mean. It's definitely not the face I drew, but I'm kind of just having fun winging it now. How are yours looking? Have you posted anything in the Discord? Let me just pop that into chat again for anyone joining in. If you want to post what you've created, put it in the Discord server. Doesn't look amazing. Let's grab the nose a little bit, pull the tip out, and do a little bit of smoothing over here. And then let's give him some nostrils. From far it doesn't look terrible, it doesn't look amazing. Let's see. Do something more with the lips. Downturn corners. Pull out some more there. Pull the mustache down a little bit. I think the jaw looks a little bit weak. Let's pull that out a little bit. Pull the brows out. There we go, that looks a little bit more manly. And stronger cheeks. Okay, I'm going to leave that for now, and then I'm going to basically add a new UV sphere and turn that into the helm. A helmet, if you know what I was talking about. So, for this, let's scale it up on the Z. And I'm just gonna delete regions where the face would show. Let's go into X-ray and border select. And then we can sort of smooth off some of these corners and stuff. I'm actually going to delete the other half of the model and put on the mirror modifier again. Put it on the Y. This way I only need to do half the work. It's always a good way to do things if it's a pretty symmetrical shape. So I'm just going to round out the corners a little bit. Make this more flush with the nose. Ooh, what happened there? Didn't select the whole thing. So now this I'm just going to start just making it a little bit more refined. I did have a reference of this. Where is my... So let's turn on the proportional and grab this down, pull things around just to make it look a little bit more refined, a little bit cooler. So pull that inwards a little bit. Let's hide these. Turn on smooth. It's not great. Let's narrow it by the eyes, lower that down, round around the eyes, because you don't want half your forehead being covered by your helmet. I mean uncovered by your helmet. Let's grab this and pull this down. Just trying to match it more to the shape of the head. It's nothing like the face that I wanted to make though. But thank you. And then I'm going to turn on a... Oh right, wrong one. On the helm I'm going to put on a solidify modifier. So the solidify just adds thickness to a flat mesh. Anyway, since this is a sculpture, let's make it just go all the way in, because you wouldn't want to have a big loose thing like that on your sculpture. So I'm doing a lot of the things, I'm adjusting how I do them based on how a sculpture will work. If you don't want to do it like that, don't have to. I just like being pedantic little shit. Why is it fine on the one side and not on the other? Is it just the... It's not centered. Yeah. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to bevel... Oh no, I can't, because it's got that modifier. I can add a bevel modifier. Turn that on by angle. And this just make semi-smooth edges on that. I think the side of the head needs a little bit more pull down. But I do like that edging sort of triangular thing on that. Don't know why, just looks cool. And then so they described as also having a crown on their helm. So I'm just going to duplicate this and I'm going to delete like most of it, except for a ring around the front, and let's see, let's keep these ones, delete vertex. So here's a useful keyboard shortcut. If you want to scale all the faces out from a certain point, if you do what is it? Shift Alt, no? Oh no, it's, wait, what have I done? I forgot this keyboard shortcut. Scale. Shift, no. Control scale? Control Shift scale? No, that's Control Shift save. Alt Shift S. Jeez, I don't know. I used this the other day and now I've completely forgotten what it is. My bad, just ignore me. It's supposed to be one that scales it proportionally out from each face. But I'm just making now a crown sort of thing on this. That's so in the movies the King of Gondor has a sort of a crown that's sort of like a big reefy feather thingy majiggy. So I'm going to do something like that. If you're using the mirror modifier and you extrude along the edge, you might get faces that pop up on the edge there. So you just want to delete those because it will affect how the thing mirrors out. And let me increase the merge so that we get that popping out. So this is definitely something that would take more than just the full 2 hours of my stream to finish. I've only really based in the or blocked in the base shape of my sculpt, and then done a little bit of detail on the head. So you can imagine the amount of time I took on just the head, but then spend that on the arm, the other arm, the main body, the legs and stuff. So you could probably spend another 6 to 10 hours to get the whole thing up to about the detail of the head, which is still not finished. But it gives you sort of an idea of, take whatever you've got and imagine making the most complete bit into the rest of the whole thing, how long that'll take. So don't worry about making your thing super detailed if it's taking forever. You can go for a more stylized look, so that could also be cool. Or you can go for a more weather-worn look as well. And you can do stuff with the sculpting, so let me actually save this. And you can also do things like with Blender itself. Some of the tools in Blender can help you get more of a stylized look. So there's a thing called the decimate modifier, which you can then use to just reduce things and get like a super stylized look if you want. And you can emphasize certain edges and stuff to make things look how you want. And there are also some modifiers you can download off other that you can find around and you can use to do stuff. So there's one like this. Let's see. This is a thing that you won't have in yours. So you can go for something that's not even anything remotely real and just make things that look cool just because why not? Let's see. So you can go for some sort of more modernist statue-y sort of thing. This add-on does stuff with modifiers and stuff, which is cool. So if you want to go for something a little bit more wacky or random, it can look cool. I kind of like how the face looks with that. It gives a sort of a interesting vibe. Maybe the Gondorians like their abstract art. Was never really described. So I think let's give you guys some homework. Work on your things a little bit more. And then when we come back on Tuesday, then we can start putting the scene together, because basically working on this character is just more of the same stuff that we did today. If you have more questions, pop them into the Discord. And let me just pop that into chat as well. And then we can just sort of work with things. If you've not got your thing looking how you want, you can figure out some stuff, but put your screenshots there as well. And then on Tuesday we'll start putting the scene together. We'll duplicate it, work on materials for the sculpture, combining the cliffs and stuff, and then we'll work on the background, so the islands and the water and stuff in the background. Alrighty, feel free to give me a follow if you enjoyed and you want to see some more. And yeah, see you Tuesday. Thanks for joining in. Goodbye.